Ukraine war, what Russia claims win in occupied Ukraine. Sham referendums. 4 so-called referendums have ended in Russian-held regions of Ukraine, votes which Moscow may use as grounds to annex more territory. Moscow-installed officials in the regions are now claiming almost total support among those who took part in the disputed votes on joining Russia. The polls were denounced as a sham by Ukraine's government and its allies. In the absence of international recognition, the process was not monitored independently. The votes were held in the breakaway eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. Ballots in Russian-occupied parts of the southern regions of Kherson and Zaporizhia were also organized. Refugees scattered across Russia were also able to vote at dozens of polling stations, including in Crimea, a southern Ukrainian peninsula annexed by Russia in 2014. Partial results from voting there indicated huge majorities in favor of joining Russia. Up to 4 million people were asked to vote in the war-torn regions, which make up about 15% of Ukraine's territory. News agencies run by the pro-Kremlin administrations in Donetsk and Luhansk are reporting that up to 99.23% of people voted in favor of joining Russia, a high percentage that would be unusual in a vote of this nature. There is speculation that Russian President Vladimir Putin may announce the 4 regions' annexation in a speech to a joint session of Russia's parliament on Friday. Ukraine war, what Russia claims win in occupied Ukraine. Sham referendums. In March 2014, he announced that Crimea had joined Russia just a few days after a similarly unrecognized referendum was held there. If Russia annexes the 4 regions, which Moscow does not fully control, it could take the war to a new and more dangerous level, with Moscow portraying any attempt by Ukraine to regain them as an attack on its sovereign territory. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky accused Russia of brutally violating the UN statute by trying to annex territories seized by force. Brutally violating the UN statute, said on Tuesday night. The president added that it was a very cynical attempt to force men in the occupied territory of Ukraine to mobilize into the Russian army in order to send them to fight against their own homeland. Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba called on the EU to impose tougher sanctions on Russia. A very cynical attempt to force men in the occupied territory of Ukraine to mobilize into the Russian army in order to send them to fight against their own homeland, he said. The UK responded to the so-called referendums with new sanctions targeting top Russian officials involved in enforcing the votes. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken reiterated that the West would never recognize Russian annexations, warning the Kremlin of additional swift and severe costs. French Foreign Minister Catherine Colonna, who on Tuesday visited Ukraine, described the polls as a masquerade. In China, a traditional Russian ally, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin said the additional swift and severe costs when answering the reporter's question about the so-called referendums. President Putin defended the referendums, saying they were designed to stop the persecution of ethnic Russians and Russian speakers by Ukraine, a charge the Ukrainian government denies. Saving people in all the territories where this referendum is being held is at the top of our minds and the focus of attention of our entire society and country, the Russian leader said in televised remarks.